hot afternoon in Southern California. And thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about how to say it to seniors and saying it to seniors while keeping your sanity. And, you know, full disclosure, in some communities, I am considered a senior now. So it makes it kind of interesting when we start talking about these topics that we bring up. But I think it's really important that as housing managers, housing developers, the senior population is growing. It's not subsiding, it's growing, and it's going to continue to grow. And as more of us are working with senior populations, I think it's important that we understand that there are some nuances, there are some areas of communication that we might all be better at with our, not just our residents, but maybe even, you know, with some people that you might have in your lives. So I presented this session back in April in Texas at the apartment association there. And I had a great response to it. So I hope that you like the material. I hope you like the information. And I'm sure you're going to get at least one or two really good nuggets out of it. All right, so we already have something in. Okay, all right, perfect, thank you. Yep, post in the Q&A box if you have something and I'll be happy to answer it as we go along. All right, here we go. Oh, how funny, I had this automated. Oops, okay, here we go. So that's me, that's enough about me. I really want to talk about the changing face of our population. I want to start by talking about that. It's, again, this is a photo of people who are probably considered seniors. Now, like I said, the older I get, the younger they look. But we do have a changing face of our population. And I want to kind of look at some of the statistics regarding that. Senior citizens are now the largest age group in the United States. And this segment is growing faster than total population. And there's 54.1 million seniors in the United States. When I first wrote this class in 2018, or actually 19, when I first wrote this and did the research on it, the number was 47 million. And here we are just a few years later, like 3 years later, and it's 54.1. And that's just in the United States. By 2060, nearly 100 million Americans will be 65 or older. That is crazy, isn't it? It's amazing. But the older population is becoming more ethnically diverse. Older adults are also working longer. And 24% of men and 16% of women ages 65 and older are still in the labor force. I want you to hear that really loud. And this is going to continue to raise significantly, especially when we're in the economic times that we're in right now. There are people that I personally know that have retired, but then had to go back to work, or they're having to stay at work longer. We just had a conversation a few days ago with some people that I know, and they said, well, we were thinking about retiring next year, but now we don't know if we can or not. So when you look at the statistic of 100 million Americans will be 65 or older is pretty crazy when you think about it. That's a lot of people. And a lot of this is because of the baby boomer generation. So this is not a class about generations or generations working in the work, you know, in different generations in the workforce. But just know that when many of us are working in environments where there might be 4 different generations. So that's another reason why this is such a great class to take right now too. So many different personalities and age groups that are in with us. So I think this is fun. Guess what the average American life expectancy is? So let's have some fun with this. Let me see if anybody wants to, let's put this in the chat box. What do you think, and don't Google it, but what do you think the average American life expectancy is here in 2022? Just throw some steps up in the chat or the Q&A, whichever one that you find. What do you think is the average life expectancy? Oh, come on, nobody's gonna play? Come on, you guys, somebody put something in the chat. Just somebody make up a number.
They're in the Q&A box. There's a good,
Oh,
good
there
amount
they
of
are.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. I see it now. Okay, now I need my glasses. All right. Okay. 75, 88, 76, 72, 85, 87 for women. 77. Ooh, Bonnie and Young getting close. 72 to 74, 75, 90. Oh, now you guys are playing along really good. Thank you. 90. Wow, good genes, good genetics. 75, 70, 75, 90. Look at you guys go. 85. I still haven't seen the number. Isn't that funny? 75, 74. I'm hoping it's longer than that. 91, 89, 81. Oh my gosh, you guys are great. We're getting so close. There it is. Brittany Diaz, 78. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Brittany. Yes, the average life expectancy now is, let me keep going here, is 78. So this gets really interesting because I know that somebody said for females, it might be different. So there is some interesting statistics about this. So for males born in 2015, their life expectancy is 76.5 years, but for females, it's 81. Kind of interesting. If you reach the age of 80, then you will likely stay a while longer, because if you get to 80, if you typically live another 8 to 10 years, and that's both for men and women. So there's some good news for us. But women still tend to outlive men. That average is shrinking, but it's because of preventable reasons. Women are increasing their rates of heart disease, of lung cancer, and that can explain. So that gender gap of mortality is actually shrinking a little bit. Women in the US have always tended to live longer than men, regardless of the demographic groups. A big reason is that women have, this is a quote, I found this on the internet, and it must be true, right? But I love this quote. It says, women have been less likely to engage in risky behavior, such as playing with guns, riding motorcycles, working in coal mines, serving in combat, and smoking tobacco, which is really funny because now I think that is genderless. All of those are genderless at this point. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Okay, so making sure that there is, okay, I'm speaking all these boxes out of here. Okay, so yes, the average life expectancy is 78 years. All right, so just so you know, this is one of my a really fun slide. So I just want you to take a good look at this guy and take a good look at this gal. Who's this? It's Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock. And guess what? They both qualify to live on your 55 and fun properties, your 55 and better properties. If that doesn't make someone crazy, I don't know what will. But yes, these two very famous people have hit the threshold of 55 and they're qualified to live on your community. I don't know about you, but that was startling for me to hear that and to see that. It's like, okay, so if they qualified, they could move in. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. That totally made me feel older than I want to be. But it's just, you know, when you think about it, when we talk about the changing face of seniors, these two people on our screen right now, and these are not old photos, by the way. Both of these photos were from 2021. These are people, I mean, when you think about it, the face of aging and being seniors is changing. And that's very evident by the way that we are living longer. We're taking better care of ourselves. And that's definitely an impact on how we're aging and how they have a different changing face of seniors. So a few more statistics about seniors. 41% of baby boomers are now 65 and better. 9.8 million over 65 are still in the workforce. So people are still in the workforce, even though they could be retired, they're still working. 23% or 3.3 million rent, they don't own. There's a variety of reasons for that. It could be for affordability purposes, or it could be they downsized. There's a lot of reasons why people rent instead of own. And many seniors never retire. My husband worked with somebody who actually in the aviation field and was in his late 80s, and just he never did retire. He just he passed away on a weekend, And so it was kind of like, wow, he just never retired because he didn't want to. Let's see. They are millionaires. I don't think they qualify given their income. Yeah, you're right. They wouldn't. You're absolutely right, Elizabeth. That's funny. Yeah, they're not going to qualify. As I said, if they qualify, they're not going to qualify on our properties. All right. And here's another fun statistic about seniors is that it's true about Florida. Older Americans do prefer Florida over other states for retirement. Warm weather, there's no income tax, and other friends have chosen Florida. Senior citizens account for almost 20% of the population in Florida. The state with the lowest amount of seniors is, I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at it, but it's Alaska. Alaska has the least amount of seniors, probably because it's super cold, right? All right, let's see. Before I go on to this one, I want to talk something really quickly too. I have a few more stats here. North Dakota has the highest average of residents over the age of 100. So, wow, North Dakota has something going on. The reasons for that, because I actually wanted to get a little bit further into that, is there's a very strong sense of community and less isolation, which, as we know, for those of us who provide housing for seniors, which is probably everybody on this call, that tends to be a very big factor in making certain that people are staying healthy, is that lack of, less isolation anyway. And people in North Dakota, they also contribute that to be more physically active. So there's that. All right, so some more fun statistics about seniors. About 12% of seniors use dating apps or dating websites. The biggest, Tinder is #1 for seniors. I thought that was interesting. There's another site called Silver Single and Plenty of Fish and Bumble. These are where seniors are going to find dating opportunities. For those of you who manage senior properties, you're probably very well aware that they're active in everything. We cannot discount or just say, oh, they're seniors, because seniors are just as active as anybody else when it comes to dating. Let's see, seniors are also tech savvy. 40 to 69% are on social media platforms. And about half of seniors use Facebook. In fact, the oldest member of Facebook is 105 years old. Not interesting. She was in 2014, this person posted, age is an issue of mind over matter. And if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. I have to keep remembering that. As my birthday looms near, I have to keep remembering that it's mind over matter. All right, so this is something I really want to talk about, is the senior trends. And senior housing is not just for little old ladies anymore. I think we all know that. The rules of the past may not apply to the seniors of today or the seniors of the future. So I can remember years ago doing a lease up at a senior community, and there were not any dishwashers. And I remember being very perplexed by why we wouldn't put a dishwasher in. It's a brand new building, why we weren't putting the dishwasher in there. And I remember asking my sister, I wasn't close to that age at that time, but my sister was. My sister had she just turned 55, I think. And so I asked her, I said, so would you even consider living somewhere without a dishwasher? And she said, absolutely not. So that made me really think why. I mean, maybe the research that was done for this particular building stated that people don't use dishwashers, but why are we thinking seniors that are seniors now are different? What they are different. There's a different mindset. There's a different aging process. Like I said, Sandra Bullock, for heaven's sakes, and Brad Pitt. These are people who are in that aging process. So everybody looks a little bit different. Things have changed. And what I always say is that seniors are not, especially senior ladies, they're not cookie bacon grandmas anymore. They're still active. They still have lives. And like I said, many of them are still working. So we really need to remember to treat seniors. We treat them with dignity and respect like we would anybody else, but we also have to remember that they're people first too. They're not just old people. They're just people with great experiences to share that just, have a little bit of maybe a little bit of wear and tear on them. Seniors do prefer to age in place. But what's interesting about that is that boomers are not following their predecessors in the products and services they desire. They want better floor plans. They do want upgraded interiors. Remember, if people are still working, then they're accustomed to seeing things out in the world that might be a little bit nicer. 89% of seniors are online once a day. So when you're thinking about maybe some of the activities or some of the things you might be providing to your seniors, think Wi-Fi. What kind of Wi-Fi access do you have? Getting that, bridging the gap on the digital divide, places like that. Activities that reflect the current social trends might be better. And again, there's two different types of seniors here. As we know, we have 55, and I call it 55 and fun because I have to. But anyway, but we also have 62 and better. So it's really important to understand, really survey your residents to see what kind of activities they want. Bingo still is popular, but maybe golf lessons or gardening or cooking or decorating classes, or maybe wine tasting or concerts, those kinds of things. Because again, not all of the seniors in your housing are cookie baking grandmas. They have more that they want to do. And here's one that really, this one shocks me whenever I say this out loud. Remember that the oldie radios, the oldie songs are not Frank Sinatra and Doris Day. But if you listen to an oldies station now, not only are they playing the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, they're playing Cyndi Lauper. I heard Cyndi Lauper on K Earth 101 and almost started crying. I couldn't believe that that would be on an oldies. Yeah, Jennifer, yeah, it's 80s and 90s are the oldies now. What happened? I don't know about you, but I don't think that's fair. Actually, I did see something else that said the 90s is the most popular decade for music right now. Yep, I love that, Jennifer. All right. So another thing too, when you think about communicating with seniors, how important this is that we are talking with people. I have a whole bunch of stuff here that I'm looking through here. So communicating with seniors is an art. It definitely is an art, and it's something that as rental housing professionals, we need to probably have a little bit of practice with. So when we look at this, there was also a huge impact of COVID-19, remembering that this is the demographic that was the most targeted by this disease and the most isolated because of this disease. So coming out of COVID, if we are really coming out of it, or wherever we are right now with it, during COVID-19, this impact is pretty substantial, where 21% of seniors reported feeling lonely or sad. 15% felt less financially secure, and 38% feel less socially connected to families and friends. All that time apart didn't do anything to help the mental health of our seniors, as they were the demographic that was most severely impacted. So let's talk about this, going back to the communication. You want to make sure when you think about this, effective communication requires that you tailor your message to your audience. Knowing your audience is very important. When it comes to older adults, many of us tend to treat them like children or like invalids. And I'm just saying that, I'm not saying, again, this is never about everybody, but there's a tendency for that to happen. So here's some of the mistakes we all make and how we can avoid them. I do know that I've worked on enough senior communities, and I've seen communities where it's really easy to say, "Oh, how are we doing today?" and things like that. This is not something that our seniors today need to hear. They don't need to be coddled either. So we talk about the different types of ways that we communicate. So how important it is to communicate with our seniors as adults. All right, sometimes we treat people differently just because they're old. Ouch, that hurts to say out loud, doesn't it? But it's true. Sometimes we treat people differently because of their age. I can flip that around and say sometimes that we treat people differently because they're young. So, I mean, you can flip this around either way. So we fall prey to the stereotypes when it comes to talking with seniors. So patronizing language is one of those things, unnecessarily simplified words, voice modulations we use with children. How are we today? You know, that would be a voice modulation that would be very insulting, would be insulting to me. I'm sure it's insulting to you too. Calling them all sweeties or dears, using a high-pitched voice, which is actually called elder speak. There's a name for that. Or speaking loudly for no apparent reason, or not speaking directly to them, speaking to if there's somebody else with them. All of this is insulting, and it may seem obvious, and you might not even realize that you're doing it. As a general rule, adults maintain their existing vocabulary or continue to improve it. So there's no reason to simplify the conversations that we're having with them. In addition to that, not every older person suffers from hearing loss. It does happen a little bit as you get older, I can attest to that, but it's not as if that's not like anybody needs to speak louder to me because I'm a little bit older. As long as you're using a normal volume and enunciating your words well, then you shouldn't have too much trouble. If somebody asks you to repeat something, don't think that that's an invitation to yell it out. I saw this quote: just because I ask you to repeat yourself, you don't need to start talking louder in volume. I can hear just fine, but just like you, I miss words sometimes. So think about that. It's not an invitation to speak louder. It could be that they just missed a word or two. Again, talking to people directly and not asking, this is the downright humiliating question: how are we today? And let that sink in. I mean, if somebody asked me that, I would be like, there's just one of me and I am fine. We need to remember they're not children. Just because they're older, they don't revert back necessarily to being children when it comes to our communications. We don't adapt to the issues that they do have. Okay, so let's think about that. Old age can bring complications. So it's important to know the difference between patronizing somebody and accommodating them. There's also something very real about environmental changes, such as background noise and maybe even harsh lighting. So you need to be very cognizant of, when I talk about the background noise, just having a TV on or radio playing in your office could, for somebody who is starting to have hearing challenges, it's going to be difficult for them to differentiate between the TV and you. So just, keeping those kinds of things in mind. Harsh lighting might be difficult on somebody who's starting to have their vision a little bit blurred. I mean, these are just small things that we can do to make this communication easier. And being sensitive towards the changes that people are making. When you're talking, it's important to avoid covering your lips and mouth. So if you're at your desk and you're talking like this, you see how different it sounds when I have my hands over my mouth. It's a completely different conversation. So you want to avoid covering your lips and your mouth. You do want to break down sentences and have visual aids if possible. Love the idea of having visual aids. And instead of asking open-ended or specific questions, ask specific questions instead of open-ended questions. These are because we might not have the same issues or the same challenges that somebody who's a senior. Doesn't mean that we can't actually understand them. So Jennifer says, I worked in a trauma-informed harm reduction mode. How do we work within rephrasing things and I think you mean without being patronizing? I think that this is a great question. It's because we are in these situations where we don't want to talk to them like children, obviously, but we still need to get the point across. So I think that being able to kind of step it back for a moment and say, what is the goal of this communication? And the communication is to get them to have the information they need, then to maybe step back and say, what's the best way for you to receive this information? Would you like me to write it down? Would you like a brochure on this? If there's another way for them to receive that information, that might work. Rephrasing is really, you can also pair it back to them The parenting exercise and communication can work as well too. I think with the trauma informed and harm reduction, the population that you're serving, you do have to have a lot of patience too, regardless if they are seniors or not. There's a lot of patience that comes with that. We forget that they are people and they're people we can learn from. Okay, there's more in the chat. So let me see. Facts. Yes. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, got that. All right. We forget that they are people and they're people that we can learn from. Somehow we just forget that they had lives. They're a person. We forget, in fact, that the person in front of us they're a person. They're a real person. They have the same thoughts and feelings that you do. In fact, and as we get older and the generations now that are ahead of me and a little bit older, these are the women who burned their bras. These are the people who protested. They lived through the summer of love. There are so many things that we could learn. They had feelings just like we do. They still have those feelings. And sometimes we forget that. We forget all about that. So it's so important that we remember that they have feelings, they have thoughts, they have ideas. They were out there marching. There's a lot of things that they've done. It's just another person, just in an older body. They just have an older body. That's it. And some of them work out more than I do, which wouldn't take much, but they really, are in better, they're in really good shape. So it's just an older body. Some of the things that you think about, maybe your grandfather had his heart broken by his first love. Maybe it wasn't your grandmother, or maybe your grandmother struggled to learn English or something. There's all kinds of things that when you think about your family and the struggles that they might have had, your residents probably have had those same type of struggles because they've lived a life. You want to tap into their wisdom and get them to share their stories. And that might be another way. I think it was Jennifer who asked about the rephrasing, ask them to tell you a story about, get them involved from their level as well. Old people like eating their favorite foods. They don't stop liking brownies or anything else just because they're older. They can probably kick your butt at chess. And they can get frisky too. I think we know that from that's what I was trying to imply during those dating sites slide. Think of what you would feel like. I want everybody to kind of go with me on a journey here. In fact, let's just close our eyes for a second and think of what you would feel like right now if you were put in an older body and people started treating you differently. I just want you to sit in that for just a minute. How would that make you feel? You still have your mind. You still know who you are. You still had this incredible life that you've lived, but just because you're a little bit older, people treat you differently. I know that that's not something that I am interested in having happen to me. Treat a senior how you would like to eventually be treated when you're a senior. And I can almost guarantee you that you're going to have a much nicer experience with them if you allow yourself just to have a lot of empathy for what they are experiencing. The sooner you realize that everyone is just another person like you, the more easily you can connect with them. We have all had experiences, and it's really fun to tap into theirs. I like to think of the older people in my life as the Wikipedia of life lessons that you can learn from. So I'll tell you just a really quick story about this. What I think I learned this from a very early age, just a really quick story. When I was a junior in high school, my parents decided to go back to their roots, which happened to be in northern Louisiana. So this very SoCal girl got picked up and moved into Louisiana, which was really eye-opening on one of the best years of education in my life. But anyway, we had my parents owned a liquor store. And in the South, you can actually have drive-up windows for liquor, which is very strange, but you also can deliver liquor. And at that time, my parents were participating in that. So there was a much older lady who would want, I don't even remember what it was. I think it was Old Crow or something. I don't remember because I don't know alcohol very well, but she would want it delivered. And my dad used to always do it, but we were really busy one day when I was working in the store and he asked me to go and deliver this to her. Now remember, this is the day was before cell phones or even pagers or anything like that. I was 15 or just turned 16. So I went to deliver this to her. And you know what? This lady was Grover Cleveland's granddaughter. And she invited me to tea. Now my tea did not have the whiskey in it. but she invited me to sit there and talk to her about what it was like to be in the White House. And when, back in the time. And I have to tell you, I spent 2 hours getting the best history lesson of my life, better than anything I'd ever learned in school. And it was because, number one, my parents sent me there, not knowing that was going to happen. They were really worried about me, by the way, because there wasn't a cell phone at the time. But it was so interesting. And I've always wanted to find those people that are around me in my life, to learn from them, because this is how you gain the trust. And if you're working with residents, this is a big trust building exercise with them too, is to really have them, get to know them and learn who they are. That was just probably one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. Jennifer, that's funny. I get it. All right. Let's see. So again, tapping into their wisdom. How much fun is that? So think about what they are thinking about. Here's what they're thinking about, you guys. They're thinking about healthcare costs. Aren't you? I mean, we probably all are. But as a senior, this is something that they are thinking about in a very, very big way. How are they going to afford to pay their co-pays? Or how are they going to afford their medication? Healthcare costs are very substantial. And when you're a senior living on very limited income, these are the things that so I want you to kind of step back for a second and think, every time that you have an encounter with one of your residents or somebody who's senior, all of these things I'm about to talk about are on their mind, whether they realize it or not, whether you realize it or not. These are the things that are like looming over what their communication with you. So they're thinking about healthcare costs. They're thinking about disease and what has happened over the past 2 years with COVID. How scary was that for our senior population? We had residents who didn't want to get out of their apartment. They didn't want to open the door. We would deliver, a little gift or a little something for them, just to stay in touch. And we would put it on their door. We would knock on the door and then step back, and then they would open the door and step back, and we'd have a conversation, because they were so afraid, of COVID, as they needed to be, because it was their demographic, their age group that was being targeted. So they're thinking about healthcare costs. They're thinking about disease. They're thinking about physically aging and what that does to one's body to start to physically age, and the changes in your body, and the changes in your mind, and the changes in your hair, and the changes in absolutely everything that happens. So that's on their mind as well. And needing physical assistance. Gosh, being independent is such a huge part of being a senior. You think about it. If they need physical assistance, for any of us who are still physically able to do whatever it is we need to do, can imagine that just because you're older, you need somebody to help you. That would be probably difficult. And they're thinking about this, that they might need physical assistance. They're thinking about their financial security and what can happen if they, right now, I'm not actively thinking about my financial security, and I'm not looking at my 401k plan anytime soon, because I'm pretty sure it's a 201k plan at this time. But anyway, our seniors have to think about not just, how they're going to pay rent, but how are they going to pay rent in 2 years? If they continue on this path of good health, how is this going to work? Are they going to be able to have enough money to not just pay rent, but to live a decent life where they are participating in life? Loneliness is a very big part of the aging process. And what happens here is that many times people see their friends, they might have a spouse that's passed away. Then they start to see their friends that passed away. And especially if they're living in a community, a senior community. And we, as for any of us who've worked on those, we know that this happens, and the impact is really difficult, and people become very lonely. So this is another thing that they're thinking about. There's a lot in their minds. Financial predators. This is always so scary, always so scary. When I was a resident manager, when I was a community manager, you could tell when somebody was thinking they were needing to do something that they really didn't, like the whole Southern California Edison. I don't know if you all know this is the huge something that the predators are out there, especially with seniors, where they're calling seniors and telling them that, and not necessarily seniors, but seniors is the number one target here. they're calling people and saying things like, hey, if you don't, this is Edison, and if you don't pay your electricity bill in the next hour, we're going to cut you off and you'll have to put up a $2,000 deposit. And so if there's that could be very alarming to not just to anybody, but to especially a senior. These financial predators are out there everywhere. Their tactic is you have to go to 7-Eleven and pay with a money order and wire the money and all kinds of things. And there are some true heroes in our society. There's a story about a woman who had received a call saying their grandson was in jail, and that she had to wire money through Walmart to another Walmart out of state in order to get her grandson out of jail. So she went to the Walmart and was giving them all this money. And the person at Walmart, the cashier at Walmart, said, I think you're being scammed. I don't think this is real. And they were able to call the actual precinct where they said he was, and he wasn't there. And so we do have some real heroes out there who are watching out for people. But the whole point of this is that those financial predators are out there, and they do target seniors. And that's something that people really have to think about and be careful of. So your grandmother got that same call. Oh my gosh, no, that's terrible. So you do know somebody who got that, and somebody stopped her from wiring the money. Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, these things are very real. I just can't imagine. I mean, I'm kind of a Pollyanna and don't understand why people can't use all their energy for good things instead of bad things, but it's just me. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry that you know somebody who's targeted by that. Another thing that they're thinking about is abuse or neglect. Again, hard topics to talk about, but does it happen? Absolutely. We know that sometimes caregivers, if you're in rental housing, you know that sometimes caregivers are not what they say they are. And there can be some abuse and neglect with our seniors as well. Yeah, I get that. Yes, yeah, April, scams are really, really sad. I don't get it. I want to, yeah. It just makes my heart hurt for people so much. Okay, so here's another question. Yeah, and when they don't trust the police either, that can be a problem too. So there's a lot of layers to this, isn't there? Just a whole lot of layers. All right. They're also thinking about transportation. One of the hardest things for a person getting older is is their ability to drive and having that being taken away. And I can speak on this from not firsthand with me, but I have a very dear friend of mine who, as he got older, he was starting to have mini strokes and falling asleep and things like that. And he's been deemed unable to drive. And this is probably the biggest blow to him, is that he's not able to take himself from point A to point B. And so this is something that's absolutely on seniors' minds as well. There's a lot weighing on them, you guys. Think about it. And think about this one, the changing social climate. How much has changed just since you've been out of high school, however old you are, just since you've been out of high school, how much has changed? We have a completely different social norms are completely different now. And if you're working with there's two types of seniors. You've got like I said, you're 55 and fun, or 55 and better, and 62 and better. So you've got new seniors and older seniors. There is a difference. So if you're talking that you're working with some of these older seniors, maybe in their 80s, then what's happening socially right now is confusing to them. And it's hard to explain to them, and because that's not how they grew up very differently. And we have to be respectful of that. Even though you might not agree with them, we have to be able to respect that this is the way that the way they see the world is going to be a little bit different from the way we do in 2022. Social media, I mean, thank goodness for social media, because most grandparents are in touch with their grandchildren via Facebook or Insta. So that's a good thing. But there's a lot of things that have changed socially. And this is something that people are concerned about as well. So they're thinking about a lot of stuff, you guys. All right. So how do we have better communication with our seniors? So I want to think about this, that the constant friction can be frustrating. But learning what goes into a healthy two-way communication can help you understand and to help you interact with seniors more effectively. So I want to give some techniques that have worked for me, and that are just hopefully, at least one of them will resonate with you that you can start using. So we start by saying, don't give advice unless it's asked for. Giving advice is best avoided unless you are sure it has been requested. You can provide encouragement and support without doling out advice. Remember, we have to speak to these people as if they're adults, because they are. So you need to be very careful that you're speaking to them. Don't just start handing out advice, only if it's asked for. And you'll know when they ask you for it. Listen to what your elderly customer is saying. Really listen to them. Don't interrupt them. Don't feel the urge to fill periods of silence that often occur during conversations. A brief pause could be that they're contemplating a response and thinking through the conversation and how to apply, or how to reply, I'm sorry. So don't, it always reminds me of that scene, that one of the first scenes in Titanic, where older Rose says, it's been 84 years. And Bill Paxton's character says, that's okay, Rose, just try to remember. And she's kind of looking at him like, I remember absolutely everything. I was going to say it's been 84 years and I can still smell the paint. We have to remember that just because they have a pause doesn't mean that they're forgetting something. They might be reliving it instead of forgetting it. Accept that there is going to be a difference of opinion sometimes. No matter how well you know your customer, not everyone is going to agree all the time. Respect others' opinions the same way you would like yours to be respected, and don't disregard those who disagree. Listen to all sides and try to compromise. And if you're hearing these are great tips for all communication, not just with seniors. Making sure that we're speaking distinctly. Some older adults do not like to admit that they are hard of hearing or have trouble understanding the conversation around them. We need to remain calm and talk in a gentle, matter-of-fact way. Only speak louder if necessary, and whatever you do, do not yell at them. That's disrespectful. And on the flip side of that, you want to make sure that you are avoiding mumbling or talking too quickly. And I don't know about any of you, but in my house, I have determined that I'm now calling my husband Mumbles, and he says he's not mumbling and that I just can't hear him correctly anymore. And I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you, but it is a sign of getting a little bit older. Even with our spouses, we have to think about this. The next one is don't be condescending. This is the last thing that our residents need from us. Make sure your attempt to turn up the volume and to slow your speech pattern doesn't come across as being condescending. In other words, you wouldn't want to say something like, okay, I get it now. I'll slow down and speak a little louder. Just the tone of that voice, just the tone of that is really condescending. It would upset me if somebody talked to my mom that way or to my grandmother. So we don't speak to them as if they're a child. It's a surefire way to start an argument. And I have a very dear friend of mine. My mom is no longer with us, but a very dear friend of mine's mom is still with us. And their interactions are hilarious because they end up yelling at each other, trying to communicate. And it's not mean in any stretch of the imagination, but it's just really interesting to watch a conversation escalate because of the different communication styles. And again, and not being condescending. Oh, I have a question. It's still there. Oh, it's in the chat. Here we go. Huge difference between talking to and talking at a person. Yes, April, so true. This is a conversation with, not a talking at. And I talk about this in several other sessions that I do with using the adult voice instead of the parent voice or the child voice. You want to make sure that you're not parenting them either, because that can happen as well. And that is a real surefire way to start an argument. All right, making sure that we choose the right environment. So avoid having in-depth or important conversations in settings where there is competing noise or distracting activities. So like I said before, turning off the TV or the radio is probably something really important in our offices where we're with senior housing. Face the person that you speak to them so that they can also pick up on your facial expressions, and you want to be able to see theirs as well. I do know that there is typically more disconnect with conversations with elders if it's over the phone rather than if it's face to face. Face to face is probably the optimum communication channel you would want to use. But if you can't do that, then making sure again that you're speaking distinctly into the phone, don't have another conversation with somebody else while you're on the phone with them. So if you can do face to face, and most of the elderly people that I know would prefer to have a face to face rather than the telephone. If you are talking in a group, make sure that the elderly person is not at the end of the table or on the outskirts of a seating arrangement. It's better to place them in the middle of the conversation. So think about that when you're putting your place cards out for Thanksgiving this year. You need to be in the middle so that they're not seated on the out. They can hear more and look at more people. I actually picked up that. I thought that was a great tip, and I've used that since then. And then here we go. Consider what it is like to be older. Most seniors experience a series of losses as they get older, and they strive to stay in control of themselves and their environment. And I'll take it a step further, and their own emotions. Some of the conversations with elders can be frustrating. It can get frustrating. It's important to be mindful that your efforts to help and make them feel like they are giving, you want to make sure that, let me start over. Be mindful that your efforts to help can make them feel like they are giving away control of things. And I know that the older we, like I said, giving away the control of being able to drive, there's a lot of different things that people give up as they get older, and, consider what that must be like. So again, those losses, each loss is giving away a little bit of that control. And then pick your battles. Many seniors face growing challenges as they age, including mobility limitations, decreased stamina, loneliness, and memory problems. So while your goal is to ensure their well-being, talking about every issue at once can be frustrating and embarrassing for an elder. So try to prioritize the issues you need addressed and celebrate the small victories one at a time. So I would say think about things like recertifications. Although I know my experience is that seniors are really good at recertifications because they have all their stuff, they keep all their stuff together. Not all of them, again, not everybody, but I think that taking one incident at a time is probably some of the best advice. And then laugh when you can. This is my favorite one. Laugh with them when you can. Laughter really is the best medicine, and humorous moments often arise even in the most difficult and stressful situations. Be open to the opportunity to enlighten or to lighten things up and take things a little less seriously. A shared laugh eases tension and can build comfort for your customer. And remember, you're laughing with them, not at them. You're laughing with them to have some fun with them. Everybody likes to laugh. I don't know I might know a few people who don't like to laugh, but laughing and laughter can change the trajectory of almost any conversation. So if you can start the conversation off, and by the way, I didn't put it in the material, but I found this great, speaking of this, I found this great flyer on 21 helpful conversation starters with your senior. And so there's 21 different things that you can ask people. If you need a conversation starter, instead of just saying, "How are you feeling, Miss Mary?" Let's have some, you can say, "Good morning, how are you?" And then jump into one of these. And I'll send it over to Scamp. So if you wanted to look at it, but asking people things like, this is just fun questions that you might not, you're going to learn a lot and get some history on this. So, ask them when you were in high school, what was your favorite book? What's your favorite movie of all times? What's another one? What do you think the best age is to be and why? What a fun question to ask your senior. Talk about getting some laughs out of that one. How did you know that your spouse was the one? How did you choose your children's names? Who do you admire most? At what moment in your life do you remember laughing the hardest? These are just I just thought they were really great conversation starters if you're a little nervous about your seniors, or you want to have more conversations with them other than, show me your social security statement so that we can research you. Just a thought. All right, so let's talk about some communication tips. So all of this dovetails into how do we have better communications with our senior residents. So I hate the word senior, and I hate elder too. So there's not a lot of in between there. Allow extra time for your older customers. If you are scheduling your research appointments or move-in appointments or whatever it is that you need to schedule with them, give it a little bit more time than you would with somebody who's in their 30s or 40s, just because it might take longer to go through everything, and you want to make sure that you're being respectful of them and not overloading them with so much information. During these conversations, while you're communicating, again, I'm going to say it again, avoid distractions. You don't want to have, like I said, the TV playing in the background or anything like that. Sit face-to-face with them when at all possible, and maintaining eye contact with them. That is, again, these are basic communication tips for everybody, but especially true for our elders. Maintaining that eye contact, again, that's part of building trust as well. And if somebody, remember, they're thinking about all kinds of things. They're thinking about their financial concerns, financial predators, transportation, needing assistance, all of those, the changing climate, all those things that we talked about earlier, all of these things are on their mind. And so for many, I think you've got two different types of seniors. You've got one who's going to trust absolutely everybody that they run into. And you've got somebody who's already been scammed once, and they're never going to trust anybody again. So you have to really, work down, build the trust with them. And a lot of that is by these communication tips. Listen to them. Just listen to them and what they have to say. Like we said earlier, one of the biggest mistakes we make is not listening to them. We start interrupting them. We might think that we know what their question is in advance, so we just immediately start answering their question before they can finish it. That's really disrespectful, especially to somebody. I was raised by people who were very strict with me on my manners. I still say yes, ma'am, and no, sir. And I still respect people who are older than me. And that's the way I was brought up. That's my generation. My parents' generation. So again, being respectful to others is number one. It comes down to knowing our manners too, I guess. Speak slowly, speak clearly, and speak loud enough without being condescending. And like we said before, stick to one topic at a time. There may be a point where you need to simplify and write down instructions. Having a FAQ sheet for your seniors. Frequently summarize the most important points that you're making, as well as give customers an opportunity to ask questions and also express themselves. I like the idea of simplifying and write down instructions, because you can also give those to maybe a family member as well. So it's not just about like how to do a recertification, what a successful application will look like, what a successful recertification will look like. Having those, doing a little work in advance prepares you for when there are a lot of questions. And then you can also hand that to a family member that can help as well. All right, so here's some tips for success with your seniors. So here's a few more things for you. Schedule older customers for earlier in the day. This is, I didn't make this up. This is just, there seems to be a better time of day for people as they get older, and that would be in the morning. So you would probably want to get any kind of face-to-face meetings that you need with seniors or elders. You want to get those done pretty early in the day if possible. Make sure that no matter what, even if you're with someone else, you want to make sure that you greet them, make them feel welcome. And even if they have to wait, let them know that you'll be with them soon. You want to make sure that you get them seated comfortably. Have comfortable chairs in your office. Now, there's two schools of thought on this. So I'll give you a funny story. I had a regional years and years ago, way before working at this company, but years and years ago, who always told me when we were doing lease ups and picking out office furniture, she said to pick the most uncomfortable furniture ever for the clients to sit in so they wouldn't stay very long. And I will never forget that because I thought that was the worst advice I'd ever heard. I think that we want our people to feel comfortable. That was a little grain of truth to that. But, you want to get people seated comfortably. If you are working in senior housing, you want to make sure that you have seating that is easy for seniors to be able to get in and out of, to maneuver in and out of without a lot of trouble. Make things easy for them to read. What's wrong with putting something in a bigger font? I mean, I'm now wearing glasses because I can't see as well. So for right now, this is the solution. But, at some point, I might need something to be in bigger font. Be ready to escort them if necessary. Keep them relaxed and focused. And you do that by having some of these conversation starters available. It doesn't have to be all business. There can be getting to know you and building that trust with some of those questions. Allow for extra time for them. And again, I can't say this enough, don't underestimate the power of eye contact, because this is a way to establish that trust that you're looking for. All right, so in summary, communication with seniors is not an exact science. You're going to need to experiment and find which of these strategies work best for you. And you also need to remember that different people will have different communication needs, which may require different techniques. And if you begin with the tips that are provided here, you can increase the satisfaction, not just for them, but for you as well. I know for me, when I have any resident interactions, I want them to feel I want to feel as good as they do when this interaction is over. So it is about taking care of you too during some of these interactions. Also making sure you increase the comfort levels with your senior customers as well. Establishing that trust is so vitally important for the people around you. I did have a few other, if I can find them now, I changed this up a little bit. Just a few other, this is a few more statistics. This is really interesting. 26% of women ages 65 to 74 live alone. The aging baby boom generation could fuel more than 50% increase in the number of Americans that could require nursing home care. The demand for elder care will also be driven by a steep rise of number of Americans living with Alzheimer's disease. This is also something that we need to think about. And the large share of older adults means that Social Security and Medicare expenditures will increase. So again, the population is only going to be getting a little bit older. There are more seniors. That means that's going to lead to more disabilities as people age. In fact, more than half of the seniors in our country that are 65 and older have a disability. This is all things that we have to think of as we're having these conversations with our senior population and our customers. Let's see. This one's interesting. The 54.4 million disabled Americans of all ages are roughly equal to the combined total of populations of California and Florida. Give you a little context on that one. Some financial issues to think about too, just really quickly before we're almost done here, but nearly 500,000 elderly living in California can't pay their rent. The majority of all single elders age 75 or older are facing all kinds of insecurities, including food insecurity. And so that's why we need to make certain that we are providing resources and that seniors should be kept in their housing as long as possible. An eviction should absolutely be a last resort. So with that, I see I have a question in here. So how can we continue this very timely discussion? So I would say that there is a great book called How to Say It to Seniors. And that's the book I read that when I took over a senior community. I don't like calling it senior, which is the next question here. But I wanted to learn more about the population I was serving. So I read the book, What and How to Say It to Seniors. And it really made a great jumping off point for me to be able to understand the population I was serving. And again, people are absolutely going to be aging. There's more and more people aging. So I have another question that says, What are the correct terms to address an older population? Exactly, older, elder, senior. So it's still correct to say older, elder, and senior. I think you have to come to terms with what works for you and that you're comfortable with. And I'm going to be very transparent. The older I get, the harder it is to say any of those. So I'm still working that out. But as far as any kind of fair housing or anything like that, any of those are appropriate. You might even want to ask your residents, how would you like to be? I would just like to say, I'm still me in an older body. That's what I would say. And yes, I don't want to butcher your name. I'm terrible at that. It says, can you please reshare your in writing your California senior stats? Absolutely. You can email me. I have it on a separate piece, a separate presentation, but I'm happy to share that with you at any time. I just think that, like Scamp was saying, this is a very timely conversation as we're all getting a little bit older. I don't think anybody's going backwards, at least if they are, I don't know who they are. But I think that if we're going to continue to serve a population that is getting older, we need to be better at it. And this means everybody. This means your, new people in the industry, seasoned people in the industry needs to have that conversation. Developers need to really pay attention to what seniors want. They want nice countertops and cabinets as well. They want dishwashers. They want parking places. I mean, if you really think about it, a lot of our senior communities if you have 50 units, you have 20 parking places. Well, if they're still working, like 50% of our population, our senior population is still working, then they need to get to work. So we really have to think about, this new generation of seniors and how we can best serve them. And that's not going to be with 20 parking places. Shouldn't you note those baby boomers are bringing their substance use abuse into senior housing? Yes, Irma, they are. That is happening. There's also prostitution in senior housing. All of that is in there. Absolutely. So it is part of what, it's just part of it's not just the baby boomers. It can be anybody who does that. So. Oh, well, thank you, Kevin. Great. I'm glad you liked it. And then we will share this today. So again, thank you, everybody. I try to use face shield instead of a mask. Oh, I love that, Jennifer. Good idea. A face shield so they can see that you're speaking to them. I love that. I love that. That's great. That's a great tip. All right, everybody. Well, if there aren't any further questions, I appreciate your time this afternoon. I hope that there were some helpful tips for you. And I will do the conversation starters as well. This to me is this is the secret sauce right here, is really spending the time with them and getting to know them as humans. Yes, my best contact information is really simple. It's arogers@nationalcorps.org. All right. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Jeanette. Oh, thank you. I know I am full of colors today. I didn't think about this when I put on my bright orange today. I forgot I was going to be on a webinar. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate this. I appreciate working with Scamp, and I appreciate each and every one of you for doing what you do to make our industry better and stronger and helping our populations we serve. Right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.